Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OpsCast brought to you by marketingops.com. I am your host, Michael Hartmann, flying solo. I am hopeful that Naomi and Mike will be joining again soon. In fact, I know we're planning on doing a recap soon of Mopspalooza 2025, so watch out for that coming out soon. But today I'm diving into one of the biggest challenges and I guess opportunities facing marketers and our marketing ops folks today is how to adopt AI strategically and responsibly. Joining me to have this conversation is my guest, Aby Varma. He is a global business and marketing leader and the founder of Spark Novus, where he helps marketing leaders navigate their AI journey from adoption to self-reliance, driving innovation in marketing and business growth. He also hosts the Marketing AI SparkCast podcast and leads the Marketing AI Pulse community, both focused on AI's real-world impact on marketing and business. So, Aby, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure.
Yeah, we may have to talk about. I know we chatted briefly before this. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the community. I think it's a local one that you have there as a part of this. But let's dive into it. Let's talk about what you're doing with Spark Novus and how did you like? What's the origin story of how you got started helping marketing leaders navigate the adoption of AI?
Yeah, great question. So this was all sort of timed well, in the sense, well in quotes, because I got into AI right before COVID. We'd hired as part of our R&D department in the company I used to work for. We hired a person who was very focused in machine learning, and I'm kind of a nerd at heart and got into it and everything. And then it was, timing wise, it was just before COVID. And so that gave me plenty of time to sort of dig into it. And uh, I went from a predominantly travel sort of role to being completely kind of in lockdown mode like we all were. And that
Sure.
it just sort of afforded me the opportunity to dig in and learn more about it. And I was like, wow, this is game changing. This is really going to, um, kind of change the way marketing is going to work. And I was in a marketing leadership role in an enterprise organization. So I was just sort of, it started off with just me thinking about, how this was going to solve my problems. And the more I got into it, I was just fascinated that this was just going to be game changing. And that was sort of the quote unquote spark for Spark Novus.
Okay, love it. Nice connection there. For those who are watching this, maybe like I'm not now I'm wondering that piece of art that's behind you, Abby, like is that AI generated? I'm just like, I don't know. Could be,
No,
could be.
it is not. That's my sister is a commercial artist, and whenever visits, I sort of twist her around to
Yeah.
create one.
There you
Yeah,
go. There you go. It's great
all
either
human.
way. Yeah,
Yes.
love it. Love it. I mean, I'm worried like at some point here in the near future, it's going to be hard to distinguish. It's like I see posts a lot of times now on like Facebook or Instagram. I haven't seen it as much on LinkedIn that I'm aware of, but like where it's like this story seems too good to be true, and then you start reading like, oh yeah, yeah, this definitely like bullshit.
AI slop. Yes, a lot of
Yes,
it is making
yes.
its way.
Well, so let's talk like so one of the things that you and I talked about was that a lot of companies when they're starting to dip their toes or starting to try to like, oh, somebody says we need to go do AI, right? It's they think about it probably like ABM, right? They really think about it as technology first, but you said that you think about it and advocate for companies to think about it on a value-based approach.
Correct.
So, I mean, kind of walk us through what do you mean by that, and what does that look like in a data, kind of at the ground level, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So the value-based approach is really changing your perspective and saying, hey, what can this tool do or what can AI do, to really what can I do with AI to achieve my business goals, right? Very subtle shift. And when I say I, you can replace the I with me or my team or my organization
Sure.
to achieve business goals. So it's really kind of changing the framing that you are putting AI to use in a way that is adding value to what is relevant to your yourself, your team, your department, your organization at that point in time. And as simple as that sounds, it is often lost in the noise of AI adoption. Like it's not uncommon where when we're working with CMOs and they'll ask me that, hey, can you help me with AI? Can you help me quote unquote do AI? And I'm like,
Yeah.
what would you like? What do you want to do? And there's an awkward silence. And that sort of is symptomatic where people have, they're obviously getting overwhelmed. There's an assault in all senses these days with AI and whatnot, but really pausing and thinking about what is the value. You can use it, but use it towards something that is moving the needle forward, with your department, your team, your organization, and that is what we call a value-based approach.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is not a great analogy, but in my head, what I went to is sort of the John Kennedy thing about like ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country. In this case, it's like ask not what AI can do for you, but what can you do with AI? Is that kind of
There
the
you go.
all right?
There you go.
You can steal that if you want.
I will. I will. But at the end of the day, you said it to me. It's the AI is not the protagonist of the storyline, right? It's human beings still very much so. So it's really, really I look at it as AI as an enabler, but what is it enabling? It needs to add value. It needs to move the needle. It needs to do something more than using AI for the sake of AI.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the way I've been thinking about it is it's almost like I was gonna say a thought partner, but it's like a partner to kind of like it's yeah, it's not even enabler. It's a multiplier maybe in
Yeah,
some ways, right?
absolutely.
And I think that's the way I've been starting to think about it, both personally and professionally, but actually, honestly, like mostly personally, I think in my world. But I think I happen to work at an organization now that is really truly trying to adopt AI, and I don't know that they thought about it as value based per se. I know I've seen senior leadership talk about like a time dividend, which I like that way of thinking about it. But I think it feels like there needs to be a sort of a thoughtful way of doing it and finding early adopters maybe. And so maybe like I have that example a little bit in my head from personal experience. Like, could you talk through maybe some examples where you've seen this either not done well and you come in and helped, kind of correct, or where you've been brought in and you did help, right? Where there wasn't that like there was that silence and you go like, okay, well let's talk about what your goals are and then figure out how to bring AI as a part of it.
Absolutely. So I'll give you maybe three examples. We work with all sorts of firms. So I'll give you an example of an enterprise company, a mid-market company, and a small business, because that value-based approach is sort of agnostic at the size of the organization you work within. So for an enterprise company, they're a Fortune 500 firm. We are working with one of their business units that launched a new product, and there was a lot of urgency in terms of launching the product, trying it out, and proving the product market fit early on before they put in more investment dollars into that.
Could I
And
ask,
that
sorry,
entire cycle.
could it just like what kind of product was it? You don't have to be specific, like software
So it was,
product, a widget kind of thing, or
it, yeah, it was a software and solution consulting sort of
got it.
packaged offering
Okay.
within
Okay.
the sustainability industry.
Got it. Okay.
And yeah, and so longer sales cycles, but the idea was, hey, how can we do it? And if you did it the traditional sort of way, that process could easily be a 1 year type, cycle where you're coming up conceiving of the idea, coming up with the idea, coming up with messaging, your go-to-market strategy, activate your channels, and all that kind of stuff. And that was something. So we were brought in and saying that we were brought in just really almost for the content piece of it that help us with
Oh,
the content generation. But when we started working with the executives, we sort of pitched the idea, hey, you could use AI to accelerate the entire cycle. And the outcome of that, like within a 4 month cycle, we were able to take the solution from concept and take it to market with a qualified pipeline of over 2,000 leads. So that was we were able to compress that within 4 months, which would just not be possible without AI, just in terms of the mechanics that sort of went into it. So a great way where we sort of took there were a lot of ideas on how to leverage AI, but we really took it to where, hey, we kept asking the question, so what? Like, hey, let's do content, or like, okay, so what? To achieve what? Okay, we wanted to make
Right.
sure that it lands with the right people, and you keep asking that question, so what, till the time you get to that nugget of value that you were trying to extract. So that's the enterprise example. A mid-market example is where we're working with a mid-market. They're 500 million professional services firm out of the Midwest. And in that example, 90% of their marketing dollars are spent for paid media, and
Yeah.
their entire use case is that, hey, anytime they want to grow, there's an expectation of, more budget dollars are needed in order to grow. So how can they get more out of the same amount of spend? And that's where, the higher sort of value was leveraging AI to really improve their return on ad spend, ROAS, and really help them grow without additional investment in their paid media strategy. And
Right.
we
It's like
leveraged AI.
bending the cost curve is what I would.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So from campaign ideas to content creation to imagery to analysis, analytics, the whole value chain for paid media is under review where AI is already adding value. And then for a smaller firm, we work with a training and services firm, small company, 25, 30 employees, and in that example, we enabled the entire organization, rolled out business ChatGPT. They don't have a lot of investment dollars for different types of technologies, so we just rolled out the business version of ChatGPT, which is $25 per user per month, very affordable. And then we came up with like this series of custom GPTs designed very specifically for these different use cases. And my favorite use case was making sure that they can really improve their sales effectiveness. So the very first prospect discovery calls, we came up with a rubric of how to evaluate these calls. And this was designed for the salespeople. So they sort of uploaded their transcripts at
Yeah.
the end of the call, and then this gave them guidance and what to do. And the value there was, prior to that, the CEO himself would be guiding the salespeople and spending 30, 45 minutes, which is not physically, humanly possible for him to do that with all the salespeople and kind of provide constructive feedback. So we were able to develop this, and then now where we're seeing a better result, where sales velocity is faster, the close rates have increased, and those sort of things. So again, in the list of use cases, there were lots of use cases, but this is a perfect example where this was value driven. We prioritized all of the sales use cases, sales enablement use cases, some of the delivery use cases, but
Sure.
we picked the use cases that added the most value to the org. So that gives you sort of a sense of enterprise, mid market, and small business. But in all of these cases, in this sort of swarm of AI ideas, we really honed in on the ones that is going to move the needle for the business in some way.
Yeah. I mean, the last one, it's interesting to me. It sounds like you get sort of two pretty immediate benefits, right? One is sort of embedded coaching from the tool,
Absolutely.
as well as probably insights and guidance on like what are the best next steps. And if you do that over time, right, you can continue to make that better. I'm curious across those and maybe others, right? Have you gone in and you had like these are the use cases and you figured out the one that looks like it's going to be most value or multiple, and then have you been surprised either way, right? It either didn't achieve the value you hoped, or it was like off the charts, like, or is there something else that you didn't expect that you like? What were the surprises you ran into?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think in some of the examples that we see, there is an assumption that there's an assumption that the concept of AI and leveraging AI is going to automatically sort of make everybody's life easier, faster, better in some way. And the surprising part is that it is so intrinsically tied to culture. And the bigger the organization is, the more sort of egregious resistance there is. And some of that resistance is subtle, right? That people won't even acknowledge it. We do, and we typically come in, we will do some sort of a baseline understanding of culture and knowledge and that sort of thing. But that to me has been really surprising, where a lot of people just have a philosophical stand on no AI, or
Mm,
it's a habit thing, right? Like they're like, hey, my workflow is this. I've been with the company for 15 years, and this is working. I don't know why I need to change my process. So a
right.
lot of those sort of things. So that culture-based resistance is very surprising, even though you can prove out value. So I think those are the ones where you got to put in some extra TLC, focus on really working with the team, being heard, understanding, and it's not a rip the band-aid off, some sort of a cultural transition in helping those sort of people. And most adoption with AI, it follows a very traditional bell curve. You have the early adopters, and the majority of the people will sort of join, and then you have the
Hmm.
laggards, and so it's that. But I think the most surprising thing, pretty much across the board, has been that sort of cultural resistance. And then the second part is it's almost the underinvestment in training, right? So that's sort of
Ah,
surprising to me, right? Where you have leaders and they focus, and I'm going to add training and governance, right? Where people are like, yep, I just want the value, and I don't want to, I don't want to spend too much effort in training the team and investing in training dollars and that sort of thing,
it's just
or
easy,
you know,
right? Yeah.
yeah, just give me the easy button. So those are things, and as part of our implementations, we definitely try to impress upon the leadership that are making some of these decisions that those elements are important. And yes, it may not be, it may not show its head right off the bat, but I can guarantee that these things will matter,
Right.
during the a longer term.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what I'm hearing is like change management and tailoring the change management to like to match the cultural readiness is still something that needs to be done here, like it is in a lot of just about any significant change, right? And this certainly would be a significant change, no matter what you're focused on.
100%. And I see that change management element is so critical when it comes to knowledge. There's just general insecurity um, about AI based on the lack of the knowledge for AI, or the lack of how the organization is intending to use it, right? So
Yeah.
people are just insecure that, hey, if I'm going to use it, eventually are they going to replace me? Or, hey, I'm giving you real life examples of where people are like, hey, I don't want to use AI because I put in a budget for 2 people to increase my team, and now I'm not going to get that budget because now people are going to be like, hey, I'm going to already have that, and that somehow detrimental to the growth, their personal growth or whatever. So these are hidden things that are there, that are in people's minds, some articulated,
Sure.
some don't. But till the time there is a kind of a effort put towards sort of nurturing and on getting a understanding of these thoughts genuinely, and then finding a strategy to address it, whether one on one or as an organization, these sort of things come up pretty routinely.
So, so on the change management piece, is there it sounds like there's maybe layers to it too. Like there's like you talked about senior leaders maybe don't fully understand it, but also people kind of the middle levels and then uh, kind of individual contributor levels within organizations. Yeah, there's resistance or um, maybe beliefs about what's possible that are a little bit not like aligned with what's real today and that kind of stuff. Like, how do you like? Are you doing sort of? Are you adjusting that change management at all those different levels? And how do you approach that?
Yeah. So as part of our process and methodology, definitely we have sort of a three-pronged approach when we talk about change management, and it's sort of a tight feedback loop. So the first is really discovery. You don't know, if you don't ask, you'll never know. So you've got to have a formal mechanism of asking, and we recommend anonymous input, which is much more richer, right? Because people
Mm,
are not afraid to sort of answer or communicate what they're thinking. And some of those feedback elements are could be reflective of the leadership or the organizational culture itself. So that is really good to know. So, for example, it could be like, hey, we are a very conservative organization. We don't typically lean in on technology. So I am not optimistic about what AI can do for us because I haven't seen that based on historical technologies. I mean, that has nothing to do with AI. That's really everything to do with the culture of the organization.
Sure.
So some of these sort of anonymous sessions will reveal that, and then we have pointed sessions which are tied to the nature of the type of org. Is it a B2B, B2C, services, product, global, local, size of team, workflows, and all that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
the mid-market firm I was telling you, there 90% of their budgets are going in paid media, right? All the other channels, not a big thing for them. So that has an impact on how AI would be leveraged and the emphasis on the various AI focused programs within the organization. So all of those things sort of are a key part of it. So one is listen and learn. The second is, I already said it, enable and train. So making sure that there's that enablement and training happening on an ongoing basis. Third is culture of experimentation. So allow people to fail
Hmm.
and fail fast and recover. So that's another thing. There's an assumption of perfection, right? And to me, it's like there's AI and people are going to try it, and voila, that's the silver bullet, and it's gonna all my
Right.
problems are gonna go away. Definitely not happening. So to me, just be realistic about that. There's all the technology providers, their sort of perspectives are definitely rosier than what real world teams experience. And so just acknowledgement of that is going to go a long way. And that those three things just need to be repeated. It's not a one and done,
Right.
especially when it comes to training. People are like, hey, if I train people and they're going to leave my team and I've just funded their education and now they're going to leave the org. And my thing is like,
Right.
is that worse than if you don't train them and they stay? Like, to me, what's worse? So my take is that invest in your team, empower them, let them play with it, get hands dirty. And that could be something as simple as even making time, because I don't know of any marketing team that works 40 hours, right? So to me, that's the thing of the past. But if you are carving out and articulating that, hey, take 2 hours on a Friday, whatever is in alignment with your organization, let people play with it. And hackathons is not limited to technical teams. You can have marketing and sales organizations do that and encourage that culture of experimentation. Very essential.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Certainly there's no teams out there. I actually just talked to a coaching client recently and I said, nobody executive team cares that you're busy.
Yeah,
Everyone's busy, right? Like,
yeah,
so get over it. Um, so all this implies that and I think you called it like there's a North Star for AI, right? And so
yes.
how do you, like, what do you mean by that? And then if you were like, when you go in and talk to these new clients or others, like, how do you help them think about what that should be and identify it and then articulate it well?
Yeah, so think of it like a pyramid almost. Like, so the value based approach that we spoke about earlier is right at the very tippy top. And that to me is your strategic North Star of what that value is. So, for example, your value in your organization could be all about business growth. Your value could be all about um, client acquisition or client retention, or the value could be, and this is a real life example working with an agency where their entire sort of North Star for their AI strategy was not to get rid of people within their existing teams, but to reduce the headcount per new client that they got. So they wanted to make sure they're pivoting the entire organization. They get a new client, which is where it's a $2 million account. What they don't want to do is go hire 4 people now to service the account, which is what they traditionally did. They're like, hey, we want to make sure we can add one more person and then some AI or 2 people in AI. And that 2 people plus AI is more cost effective than 4 people. And faster and maybe improved quality and insights in some instances. So
Hmm.
making sure that that underlying sort of your North Star becomes that underlying decision point. And we physically do this exercise in workshops, but just for your listeners, imagine if every use case was a post-it note. In a half-day workshop, it is not uncommon for the wall to have, like, 50 plus post-it notes.
Right.
And it's funny because the moment you add you work with the leadership and you add a strategic North Star and saying, hey, our focus is going to be on retention because our churn is really high. You will see magically all the non-retention post-it notes sort of wither away. I'm not saying that they are not important, but the relative
Right.
importance in those becomes sort of secondary. So to me, when we say strategic North Star for AI, it is really making sure that you're answering the question of why and why now, and what are you focusing on. And a great example was we were working with a company where their CMO or marketing leadership wanted to redo their digital asset management system. It was there for a decade, and if there's a dam for a decade, it's there. It needs some cleaning, right?
Right.
They
Of
had like
course.
millions of assets, and they wanted AI. They were like, "Oh, perfect use case. Can AI just scan all these things and recategorize and blah 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 based on our new go to market?" Great use case. Definitely AI can do that. That's one. The second thing is they're entering a brand new market. They're entering new markets in Europe, and they want marketing to support them in that go to market play. What do you think got the most value? Again, the digital asset management was not a bad use case, but in the relative importance of that North Star being business growth, all the effort where AI could play a part in was for the new market play, the new market go to market play. So
Right.
that's an example of where your North Star can guide everything. It prevents random tool adoption, disconnected pilots, kind of displaced investments. Everything that you do is aligned to something bigger.
Yeah, that makes sense. So another thing that you talked about, and maybe this feeds into like it feels like what you're describing there helps with prioritization, which totally makes sense. One of the things you said, I think when we last talked, is that you know, getting like productivity improvements are sort of table stakes in adoption of AI. But there should be like there like but that's like the table stakes. So what should be people thinking about beyond that? I mean, you've kind of touched on it, I think, but um, and maybe that like that it feels like that idea you just talked about with the dam is because it falls in that category. Like that would be a productivity benefit, at least short term, right? Maybe there's more too, but the other one felt like it was more of a high value aligned with business goals. Like, is that what you were talking about there? Like,
Yeah, I think that when it comes to AI use case, productivity is like when I say table stakes, it's pretty much kind of embedded. That's why AI is so popular, already. So you'll
right,
see people, regardless whether it's generative AI or analytics or creative, whatever use case, it is essentially helping you do the same thing in less time, or helping you do the same thing and more and better quality or whatever in less time than what you would traditionally do. So
sure,
when I said, productivity is sort of table stakes, that's what I meant. But I think teams should really think beyond that, right? Like the value addition
okay,
discussion that we had. And to me, there's sort of three pillars. Productivity sort of is the underlying pillar, or sort of a horizontal layer. And then on top of that, think of it like as three pillars. And to me, that is, speed, precision, and data driven insights. And those three things, again, sound simple, but those are things that we have chased in the past and with moderate success at best, right? Like, and I think the best example that exemplifies like all of these three pillars would be personalization, right? Like it's been the holy grail for marketers.
sure.
We want to personalize things, and pre AI has not been easy. Like it's time consuming, and we come.
It's not truly personalized. It's like you're in maybe it's you're part of a group that's bigger or smaller maybe, but it's not truly personalized.
Correct. So it's been like we come up with segments, and then we personalize messaging to the segments, and then we do the outreach, and hopefully the segments line up with the messaging and the message resonates. That's been sort of the traditional way of doing things. But now with AI, you can have a segment of one. You can really do things and have a segment of one and really go personalize things and do it fast. So to me, if your AI use case is able to beyond productivity is able to achieve all three elements, all three pillars: speed, precision, and data-driven insights. Amazing. But
Yeah,
even if it is able to achieve one or two, to me, that's a win.
got it. So, so one of the things that, at least in my own life, and I think you've echoed this as well, is that like for me, it took me a little while, but like on a personal level, like I, I, unless I know that something's going to be a very binary, like this is the answer, like I almost never use a search engine anymore. If it's anything that even has the hint of being complicated or is going to require, I'll call it in quotes, research, right? I
Yep.
tend to use an LLM for that now. But it's pretty much a normal thing for me on my personal level. But even at work, even at a place where they're really pushing for adoption, I still I'm not personally doing it, and I don't see a huge amount of adoption that's obvious, other than sort of a small set of people. Like, what do you think is the challenge there?
You mean personal adoption versus organizational
Yeah,
adoption?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think to me, when you're sort of playing with AI and experimenting with AI, using AI individually, it's just liberating and there's freedom. You can do whatever you want. You can play with it and sort of get whatever results you can. There's no barriers, there's no box you need to fit into, there's no governance, there's no compliance, none of that.
Right.
But the
Sure.
moment you sort of extend that out to a larger organization, there needs to be a level of orchestration because everybody's not doing things the exact same way. So you want to make sure there's four copywriters using AI to write content. Well, you can't have the content sound four different ways. You want to make
Sure.
sure that your brand voice and tone and messaging and everything is all in alignment. So now you want to put in a way where, regardless of whatever the prompting happens with those four copywriters, the output is sort of consistent in some degree. Okay, then you have to have your governance, your do's and don'ts. Make sure our tone of voice is not bombastic. It's humble and fact based or whatever. I'm just making it up, but
Sure.
now you got to kind of come up with those sort of rules. And make sure you're doing it, and then you start talking to compliance teams and all those sort of things where in IT organizations and legal organizations, there are things that they are very careful about what kind of input is going into your AI, right? So I think
Right.
the challenges become very different. It's just basically more strings attached to the way you use it. And the success of that is predicated not on just individual performance, it's all sort of different performance or orchestrated performance, if you will, like team
Yeah.
performance, and that is to me sort of critical.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think even I'm thinking about this, like even personal, like where I think I talked to you before we started recording, right? That I'm doing some stuff with my wife, right? And just even adding a second person into the mix makes it complicated, let alone broader organization. So that totally makes sense. Um, when we talked before, you mentioned another phrase that I want you. You said that you think about something called the human AI sandwich. So I see you smiling. So what is that? And how should we think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to one of the members of the Marketing AI Pulse community who use this term. So not my term, just acknowledging it, but I loved it because to me, I feel that AI for the foreseeable future is going to be the human AI sandwich, where really you have humans at the start and the end of the process, and you have the AI in the middle. So, right, humans are triggering and defining the problem and sort of articulating what they want AI to do. AI does the heavy lifting, whether it's the research, the generation, the analysis, what have you. And then you have the human in the loop on the end of it, kind of looking at the output. And I feel that sort of keeps that's the best way to sort of leverage what AI can do for you today. It is keeping the output intelligent and emotionally resonant, if you will, based on the human values of the human that is driving and seeking the output. Very often, I refer to the term as AI slop in the beginning when you
Yeah.
and me were talking, and to me, I think when I see AI slop is where the quote unquote the two slices of bread on either end fail, right? Where the input given is very generic and there's no human review at the end to guide it. So you're pretty much taking AI output and leveraging it, and that to me isn't does not give you sort of the best output. But I feel the human AI sandwich is that premise is going to change in the agentic future that stares us all in the face, right?
Yeah.
So with agents, agents are going to be designed with what today human beings are the trigger in terms of what we want AI to do, and that is changing fast. I think humans will still have a role to play in it, but that how that sort of translate into the human AI sandwich remains to be seen. But I certainly feel that that is critical recognition of what I said earlier that humans are definitely the protagonist of the story.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember talking to someone. It may have been on one of our episodes where someone we kind of got into a discussion of if you were to quote onboard a virtual employee that's AI based, right? Why, would you? How would you handle that in terms of giving it more autonomy?
Hmm.
And my take was, I was like, I don't think I would treat it much differently than a new employee, especially one who's doesn't have a lot of experience, because I would probably early on spend more time with him, the employee, give it guidance, support, handle specific situations, and slowly give it more and more autonomy to make decisions independently. And I think I would do the same thing with an agentic kind of employee as well, because I think part of it is just like, oh, trust is not really anything, but like I need to trust it to make reasonable decisions, and I want to give it guidance on, you know, if you feel how confident, have a good model for how confident it is about a decision or direction it's going to go, and if it doesn't meet a certain threshold, right, and over time that threshold might get make it lower and lower and lower, just because it becomes better at doing that. So I don't know that is that
100%.
yeah, I think that's where I'm kind of seeing it. It's interesting because like every time I say like the foreseeable future, use that term, I'm like, I don't know how far the foreseeable future is anymore. Like it's just
That's
things are
true.
moving so fast.
It is true, and I mean, an interesting part is I'm seeing this already in sort of a double-edged sword because the more the LLMs themselves or AI itself is moving at a galloping pace. It's getting
Yeah.
better, more parameters, and that sort of thing. But in addition to that, the more information and context that it has, the output keeps improving, right?
Yep.
And to a point where now people do have a little bit of trust in it, especially if you're using an app or a tool or whatever, where you've trained it on your brand voice and your style and all those things and facts and competitors and keywords and whatnot. And you suddenly start getting content which is more in alignment with what your brand would have. But despite that, I feel that it is more than anything else sort of a word of caution that we get very complacent. Humans get very complacent where you trust it three times and you're like, great, the fourth time,
Yeah.
the human in the loop portion can sort of the risk is it withers away. And I would caution people against that, where I would want that, you know, despite great, you may have gotten amazing outputs the first 10 times, but the 11th time still needs a human in the loop. So every single time human in the loop. But I'm sure in the future that may change, but that level of trust, don't let your guard down after just a few times. Still remain in the loop.
Yeah.
'Cause it's especially if you're leveraging AI to represent your word and your ideas.
Yeah, it's funny the analogy I just popped in my head. But you said is like I'm in the middle of teaching one of my children to drive, and the reminder you get every once in a while when you forget to just look over your shoulder to before you change lanes, right? You find out that somebody's there, and uh, it's like that reminder that, oh yeah, I need to continue to do that, right?
100%. Love
Yeah,
that. Love that.
yeah. So that's interesting. So okay, so let's maybe. it feels like you've been a little bit of a down here, but I still think there's positive stuff here. But like, okay, so these are all the challenges, and we've talked about some ideas on how to overcome that. Like, how do you how do you think about, or how do you guide organizations to build um, guardrails, that are responsible, but to still enable teams to move quickly and adopt over time? Like, what's your best recommendation on how to approach that?
Yeah, I think we have a very simple framework, and it is input, output, transparency, right? So people get lost in the acronyms and the laws and the compliance, and anybody who's been through GDPR knows all about this, right?
Right.
It's a slippery slope. But if you were to really abstract it and you think about it in terms of input, output, and transparency, I think that would serve as sort of a framework for how to approach responsible use. So when we say input, establish rules for what kind of data goes into AI. Some of that would come if you're a marketing organization, some of that should come from your overarching company level IT folks, compliance people on what you are doing. So PII data, don't download as CSV of your Salesforce and upload it into ChatGPT and ask it to do analysis. Don't do that, right? That sort of stuff. So establish rules for input. Um, Establish obligations for output. So whatever comes out of chat or AI, not ChatGPT alone, but whatever any kind of AI, make sure that there is, look for compliance, look for brand voice, look for factual efficiency or factual data, factual efficacy, and those sort of things. So establish rules for what is the output, and from a transparency standpoint, this is part governance, but part culture, organizational culture, where you establish, work as a team. If you have an AI council or AI working team, I've seen different names, within organizations like a working committee or whatever. But whatever that is, establish rules for transparency. At what point and how are we going to inform people that AI has been used to leverage this? So, for example, I see that, I'm going to give you a very simple example of video, right? Like where, in the case of video, one of our clients, their CEO is completely okay with an AI avatar, and like, great, the avatar comes to him, he's okay with it as long as he's approved the content, it's his voice. He doesn't want to go through the logistics of recording and all that kind of stuff. So great. So he comes on the video, and at the bottom of the video, it says that, hey, this is an AI generated avatar of the CEO, but um, approved in alignment with approved messaging and da da da, whatever,
Right.
some sort of term like that. So that's one way of your disclosure. The other way of disclosure, same video, you watch the video. At the end of the video, um, it says video was made in alignment with our AI policy. Go to website.com/policy. Same way, but the same video, but the way you've disclosed it is two separate ways, and that is a business decision that
Right.
teams have to make. So the input output transparency, obviously I'm super simplifying it for the sake of this podcast, but that serves as a very broad framework for every organization to think about it and then make sure that you're formalizing it and implementing it. But especially within marketing teams and marketing ops folks that have a great role to play in this, they should really make sure that there is a body within the marketing organization, and then some
A
marketing
body
leader.
meaning like a small team, or a body meaning a
Correct.
person? Okay.
It depends on the size of the team. So we have a marketing council where it's the CEO and us. So that's the marketing. That's the AI council. In that case, it's the full organization. But in some of the bigger organizations, it is a marketing AI council where there is key members of the functional and geographical, like regional leadership, form that council. Any decision making that needs to be made goes through that organization. So make sure that there is some structure in that as you were deciding rules for input, output, and transparency. But you can go to that body and sort of have those open-ended discussions and debate and come out with something and formally publish something and spend time again educating your organization as to what that outcome is, what the policy is, and another thing I'm seeing is that that those lines are moving fast, right? So it's not
Yeah.
again one and done. I would encourage teams to look at their governance every 6 months. So, I mean, when all of these AI note takers started, everybody was like, "Whoa," apprehensive about allowing a note taker in a meeting or whatever, or announcing that, "Hey, I have a note taker. Is it okay for me to record it?" Well, water on the bridge. A year later, there's like four people and eight note takers, and nobody bats an eyelid,
Right.
right?
Right.
So to me, that line's moving fast. So from a governance standpoint, make sure that whatever input output transparency guidelines you're putting into place is reviewed on a some sort of a regular cadence, and I wouldn't go beyond 6 months at this point.
Yeah. You touched on the marketing ops role in this. Is there, so when we finish up here, is there anything else, like, given our core audience of marketing ops folks, right, that you like, what role should they be playing in this? Should they be proactively pushing it? Should they be um, following along? What's your suggestion on what they should do at this point?
I think to me, marketing ops, the role for marketing ops professionals is critical. Like to me, I really see that they are the connective tissue between the strategy and the execution. They understand processes and data and governance and all these elements which are critical for AI to scale. And so, at the end of the day, you need marketing leaders, CMOs or CEOs need ops people. They need a Sherpa to sort of guide them along,
Mm,
right, in this journey. And to me, I think ops people, just because of the nature of what they do, they understand the processes and roles and responsibilities, org and technologies and workflows and all those sort of things, are really well positioned to play that role of being that kind of quote unquote AI Sherpa for an organization or a team. So to me, I think it's sort of critical in a lot of organizations where, and we work with organizations where there are AI ops leaders, and we sort of help them, enable them to do that for their organization, and that works really well. And in organizations where AI ops or ops doesn't exist as a function, marketing ops doesn't exist as a function, there is a there's a little bit of a struggle as to who should own this.
yeah.
And while there is a perspective that really everybody should be doing AI, which I completely agree with, because in 5 years, it's going to be like the internet where no one's going to be talking about AI, because if you don't do AI, that is newsworthy. But at this point, there is orgs without a marketing ops people suffer from that ownership thing. And, that's where we work with a lot of CMOs and help them and play that role, if you will, but obviously in the context of AI where there is no ops people. But I think it's the perfect kind of role in that connective tissue for strategy and execution.
Awesome. That makes sense. Well, Abby, I'm quite certain we could have gone on for another, whatever it has been, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. But I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining. If folks want to continue the conversation with you or learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I think obviously would love for people to hit me up on LinkedIn, but also you can go to sparknovus.com. That's SparkNovus.com, sparknovus.com. And on the top navigation, you should see community, where you can learn more about the Marketing AI Pulse community that we host. We definitely have events here locally in Atlanta, but it's not only a local community. We do a lot of online events, and we're doing different events. We did one in Charleston. We have one planned in Miami and Chicago. So there's more coming next year. And then, yeah, would love to have folks tune into my podcast. It's the Marketing AI SparkCast. Again, if you go to sparknovus.com, you should see podcast on the top navigation.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you, Abby. It's been a fun conversation. You've got some good ideas myself, so I'm sure it's going to help our audience. As always, thank you to our audience for continuing to support us and listen and now view. If you have ideas for guests or topics or want to be a guest, you can always reach out to Naomi, Mike, or me. We'd be happy to get that started. Till next time, bye everybody.